The Tokyo night buzzed with electricity, the kind that hums through a city when something monumental is about to happen. The Ryogoku Kakagikan Arena glowed under a canopy of lights. Its 11,000 seats filled with fans chanting. Their voices are rolling. Wave of anticipation. Banners waved, some emblazoned with monster in bold kanji, others with the name of the challenger, Diego Alvarez, a Puerto Rican brawler whose relentless style had earned him a shot at the undisputed bantamweight king. Naoya Inoue. Inside the arena, the air was thick with the scent of sweat, beer, and expectation. The ring stood at the center, pristine under the glare of spotlights. A stage for a clash that promised to be legendary. Inoue stood in his corner, his face a mask of calm. His black gloves gleamed, and his eyes, sharp as a blade, scanned the crowd without lingering. At 32, he was at the peak of his powers. 26 fights, 26 wins, 23 by knockout. They called him the monster for a reason. His punches carried a force that seemed to defy his 118-pound frame, his speed a blur that left opponents grasping at shadows. But tonight wasn't just another defense of his titles, it was personal. Alvarez had spent months taunting him, calling him overrated. A paper champion who hadn't faced a true test. The words had stung, not because Inoue doubted himself, but because they echoed a deeper question. What did it mean to be a champion? To build a legacy? He adjusted his mouthpiece, his trainer, Shingo Inoue, his father, whispering final words of encouragement. Across the ring, Alvarez bounced on his toes, his dark eyes blazing with defiance. At 29, he was a physical specimen, taller, broader, with a reach advantage and a reputation for absorbing punishment that would floor lesser men. His record wasn't perfect, 24-2, but those losses had come early, and he'd since torn through a string of contenders with a ferocity that made promoters salivate. He'd called Inoue's style robotic, predictable, vowing to expose him as a one-dimensional fighter. The crowd sensed the stakes. This wasn't just a fight, it was a collision of wills, a test of whether Inoue's precision could overcome Alvarez's raw power. The referee, a grizzled veteran named Hiroshi Tanaka, called the fighters to the center. His instructions were crisp, his tone firm. Protect yourselves at all times. Obey my commands. Touch gloves if you wish. Inoue extended his gloves, but Alvarez smirked, turning away without reciprocating. The crowd murmured, a mix of boos and cheers. Inoue's expression didn't change. He returned to his corner, his father's hand on his shoulder. Focus, Shingo said. You know who you are. The bell rang, and the arena erupted. Round 1 began with Alvarez charging forward, his jab probing like a spear. Inoue slipped the first, then the second, his head movement fluid, almost casual. He countered with a sharp left to Alvarez's body, the thud audible even over the crowd's roar. Alvarez grunted but kept coming, throwing a wild right that grazed Inoue's shoulder. The champion circled, his footwork a dance of precision, his eyes locked on Alvarez's torso. Reading every twitch. A minute in, Inoue landed a crisp 1-2, the second punch snapping Alvarez's head back. The challenger grinned, as if to say, is that all? The round ended with both men unscathed, but testing each other's resolve. In the corner, Shingo splashed water on Inoue's face. He's strong, but he's open after the right. Hit the body, slow him down. Inoue nodded, his breathing steady. Across the ring, Alvarez's trainer, a weary man named Carlos Rivera, barked instructions. Keep the pressure. Don't let him settle. Alvarez nodded, his chest heaving, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Round 2 saw Alvarez double down, throwing looping hooks that forced Inoue to duck and weave. The challenger's power was evident. Each miss sent a whoosh through the air, a reminder of what might happen if one connected. But Inoue was a ghost, slipping punches by inches, his counters landing with surgical accuracy, a liver shot in. The final minute made Alvarez wince, his aggressive stance faltering for a moment. The crowd roared, sensing the shift. Inoue's eyes flickered with something primal. He was finding his rhythm. By round 3, the fight's tempo had settled into a brutal ballet. Inoue's combinations were sharper now, his jab a piston that kept Alvarez at bay. At a nearby hospital, Inoue sat in a sterile waiting room, his fight gear replaced by a plain black hoodie. A doctor approached, his face grim but not hopeless. "He's stable," the doctor said. "Severe concussion, some swelling, but he's conscious now. He'll need time, but he should recover." Inoue exhaled, a weight lifting, but not entirely gone. He asked to see Alvarez, but the doctor shook his head. "Not yet. He needs rest." Inoue left the hospital, the Tokyo skyline glittering. Under a moonless night, he walked alone, the city's noise a distant hum. His phone buzzed with messages, congratulations from fans, promoters, even rivals, but he didn't read them. His mind was elsewhere, grappling with the cost of what he'd done. He'd won, kept his titles, his record intact, but the victory felt hollow, tainted by the image of Alvarez on the canvas, the medic's urgency, the crowd's silence. The next morning, headlines screamed across Japan and beyond. Inoue's Monster Co., a champion's triumph, a fighter's tragedy. Social media buzzed with debates. Some called Inoue a god, others a reckless force. Boxing forums dissected the fight, some praising his precision, others questioning the sport's brutality. Inoue stayed offline, retreating to his gym, where he trained in silence. The rhythm of his punches awaited drown out the noise. Alvarez's team released a statement that afternoon. "Diego is awake and talking. He's a fighter, and he'll be back. Thank you for the support." Inoue read it on his phone, sitting on a bench outside the gym. He felt relief, but also something deeper, a reckoning. He'd always known boxing was dangerous, that every punch carried risk, but knowing and seeing were different. He thought of his daughter, asleep at home, and wondered what she'd think of her father one day, the man who built his name on breaking others. Days later, Inoue visited Alvarez in the hospital. The Puerto Rican was propped up in bed, his face bruised, but his spirit unbroken. "You got me good, man," Alvarez said, managing a weak smile. "Next time, I'm coming for you." Inoue nodded, his throat tight. "Rest up," he said. "The ring will wait." They shook hands. A moment of mutual respect, but Inoue felt the weight of what had happened. He'd won the fight, but the cost lingered. Back in the gym, Inoue resumed training, his focus sharper, his punches heavier. Shingo watched, saying nothing, knowing his son was processing something no trainer could teach. The media frenzy faded, replaced by the next big fight, the next big story. But for Inoue, the night of the knockout never left. It was there in every jab, every hook, every moment he stepped into the ring. Months later, he fought again, another title defense, another knockout. The crowd roared, the headlines praised. But Inoue's celebration was muted. He raised his gloves, smiled for the cameras, but his eyes carried a shadow. He was still the monster, still the champion, but he was also a man who'd seen the line between glory and tragedy. And he knew he'd walk it again. The story of that night in Tokyo spread, becoming part of Inoue's legend. Fans spoke of the knockout with awe, analysts with reverence. But those closest to him saw something else, a champion wrestling with the cost of greatness. Inoue kept fighting, kept winning, but each victory carried a question. How much was too much? He didn't have an answer, not yet. But he kept moving forward, because that's what fighters do. The script ends with Inoue in the gym, alone under a single spotlight. His gloves hit the heavy bag, each thud a reminder of who he was and what he carried. The sound echoes, fading into silence as the screen goes black. Text appears, Naoya Inoue, the monster, the man, the legacy. The credits roll, and the story lingers, a testament to